welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Srikanth, joining you live from India's Startup Capital, Bengaluru, and it's really buzzing with news today from that big launch that's expected from Apple later tonight to the big spat that's happening between offline and online. We're going to get you all the stories that matter on Startup Central.
That's right. This is Krishna Kumar coming to you live from ET Now's Mumbai studios. First up, as usual, I check on all the big buzzing stories here at ET Now Startup Central. The big boy of retail, Kishore Biyani, has yet again taken on the startups. Biyani, who has been questioning the business model of new age companies, has gone a step further and said that 90% of the startups are nonsense and have no meaning. He also says that most startups work on a smaller canvas and want to just sell themselves. Apple fans brace for the big iPhone 7 launch tonight at 10:30 p.m. Stay with ET Now for a lowdown of what's in store right here on Startup Central, and of course, eventually at 10:30 p.m. for the big launch. Just days after M&M chairman Anand Mahindra highlighted the potential of shared mobility services, the company is warming up to Ola, India's leading online cab aggregator. Sources tell ET Now that M&M is likely to offer a host of services ranging from auto insurance to service of Ola cabs. The Mittal family finds itself in a unique spot even as father Sunil Mittal's Airtel takes on Mukesh Ambani in a bitter battle. Son Kavin Mittal cheers the entry of Reliance Jio as it will benefit his messaging app Hike. Exclusive conversation coming up on the show. Sequoia Capital, which was recently under the Enforcement Directorate's lens, has said that they will support the ED with all the ongoing investigation. A chat with the managing director on their future course of investments as well.
Krishna, Kishore Biyani is at it again, and this time he's really stared into startups with some very harsh criticism coming from him at the Economist Summit. He's gone on to say that 90% of startups really don't make sense. They're really nonsense. He's also questioned the ability of startups to create employment. He's also said that startups are, or most of the startups are only doing things to get funded from one down to the other to ultimately get sold out. They're working on a much smaller canvas and really not looking at the big picture. So that's, really harsh criticism coming in from Kishore Biyani, but he's really not been a fan of startups all these months in the last couple of years. He has time and again raised questions on, valuations. But I guess this is one of the harshest statements that's really come from him. And let's listen into what he had to say at that Economist Summit earlier today.
I think most of the 0 to 1 companies, which are startup companies, are funded by private equity and venture capitalists, and once they all created to sell, so the large companies will buy them out. So large companies innovation is happening already.
But what about?
They all come with a view of 7 years.
Yeah.
So they have to exit. Look at Indian examples. I think that by the time the company is into Series 2 round of funding or Series 3, I don't understand these rounds, they are 80% gone. And that private equity is not here. It's not long-term capital in any sense. So they have to exit. Somebody has to buy.
To be
so the large corporates will buy them out.
Now we do have Mr. Ravi Gururaj, Chairman of NASSCOM Product Council, joining us on the phone line to sort of understand all of this a little better. Mr. Ravi Gururaj, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on ET Now Startup Central. I'm sure you've heard of what exactly Mr. Biyani had to say. It's not the first time he has done this, especially speaking to the media as well. He's done this several times before. What is your take? Because at the end of the day, Biyani just bought out a startup, and the claim that 90% of startups in the country are absolutely nonsense and is only there to get funding and to be sold off to a bigger player. Would you even dare to agree with something like that?
Well, I think Mr. Biyani is no fan of startups right now because I think he sees them as coming to disrupt his status quo industry, right? But I think partially he's right and partially he's wrong, right? I think in the sense that he's urging startups to think long-term, think big, build big sustainable businesses. That's a good thing, I think, okay? I think to the extent that he says startups that are venture capital funded are going to look for exits, of course, that's possibly a path to liquidity, right? But I think where he's wrong is when he starts attacking, for instance, the aggregation model as broken and useless and nonsense. I think that's completely wrong. That's what folks used to say about even Walmart versus Amazon 10, 15 years ago. And today, if you look at their market caps in the U.S., Amazon is almost twice as large in terms of market cap, at least, as is Walmart, right? And if you look at Mr. Biyani's own sales, he's got almost 10,000 crores in sales, but he only makes around 40 crores in net profit, right? And that's with debt hanging over his head of almost 5,000 crores. And, a big, massive, inefficient footprint of almost 1,000 stores, I think, across the country, right? So, I think, he could be right in some aspects of wanting to urge startups to think big, but I think to call them all nonsense is not, really the right attitude to take, I think, I think it may be that, he should think through his own moves, right, where he's gone after Big Bazaar Direct. He himself has picked up Fab Furnish. He's working with, retailing through Paytm, right? All of that, he's also working in the ecosystem too, right? So I think, big, bold statement, but I think partially right, partially, I think a little bit overstatement.
Okay. Ravi, I wouldn't expect you to say anything otherwise because, you're championing the startup cause at NASSCOM. But, leave the nonsense statement aside. The fact of the matter is, Ravi, in the last few weeks, a lot of people are saying that, Indian unicorns, Indian startups are targeting a very small segment of the population. They're really not targeting real India where, income levels are much lower. There is no parity as far as that is concerned. These people really have, no money to spend online. So again, do you think he has a point there that, most of the startups are modeled on Western companies, they're copycat models, that they're really not being built to cater to Indian problems, solve Indian problems, so to speak?
I think you've got to look at the startup system, ecosystem in kind of stages, right? I think the first stage was where they were going after the relatively high income population, right? That is here, and that's a relatively small target market. And, to the extent that they have saturated that, or to the extent that there's been too much competition, I think smaller players are being forced out, right, of that segment. Or you'll find that even the large players have to grow into new segments. And to that extent, I agree. India is a huge market. There's 1.3 billion consumers available here. Not all of them have, deep pockets. So you need to have very efficient models. You need to be able to cater at very different price points than maybe the top segment, right? And so there's a lot of innovation available there. I think with lots of the financial inclusion trends we're seeing come in, I think with mobility becoming much more rampant, I think, there will be e-commerce models and all kinds of new business models that will actually serve those communities. I think to the extent that you can bring lots more efficiencies with startup technologies that are injected into the landscape, I think a lot of that will get accessible.
Ravi, I just have to ask you one thing. This comes on the back of Big Bazaar Direct, Big Bazaar's own online foray being shut down, and the reason being given was the lack of a profitable model. It's not. I'm not sure how to read this. Then, if they have shut down Big Bazaar Direct, their online foray for the lack of profitability, and today you have the statement on how the models don't really make sense. Big Bazaar's model itself didn't make sense in the beginning, right?
Yeah, so I think, listen, Mr. Biyani is entitled to experiment too, right? Just as startups are. So I think, more power to him. I think, he might need to step back in certain areas where he experiments, and others where he can find a way to go in a hybrid model, maybe an omni-channel model that suits him best. I think, he needs to look to his strengths, right? Not just maybe ape a pure e-commerce model, right? I think, listen, I think we're going to see a lot of experimentation. I think to the extent that 9 out of startups fail, I think, that's true. We will see a lot of young companies fail, but that's not because they're bad models necessarily or they're all nonsense. I think it's because, the survival of the fittest will deem who goes on to scale up. And those that provide the best value, those that have the best execution will win. And I think that's true in any startup ecosystem, and that's the way it should be. But the other 9 that failed, guess what? They'll come back in a few years to build something new. They'll learn from that experience. They might even join other startups. So I think it's a good, healthy thing to have a lot of experimentation going on. because the consumer deserves it.
Right. Ravi Gururaj, thank you so much for talking to 18 Hour Startup Central. Of course, Kishore Biyani's comments will not find too many takers, but I guess few people might agree, but saying 90% of startups are nonsense, I mean, Krishna, personally, I don't think I agree with that. You just have to see the enthusiasm, the energy here. I mean, every startup doesn't have to be successful, but you really can't blame them for trying. But moving on from that to the other big event tonight, something that everybody is looking forward to. We are, of course, talking about the big launch from Apple, and our in-house Apple expert, Krishna, is going to take us through all the details.
Well, Chandra, where do I start? At the end of the day, the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus is what is expected to be unveiled, just like the 6S and 6S Plus. No changes on that front in terms of the model or the nature of the phones per se, and it's set to look largely the same. This time around, the expectations are about having not too many expectations. Don't expect a home button, that the circular button at the bottom of your phone, that could go away. It is expected to be waterproof. A waterproof iPhone is something that's meant for people like me who keep dropping them all the time. Dual camera at the back, two lenses, apart from the front-facing camera for better picture quality, which some phones like Huawei and Lenovo have already introduced. Apple might just do that. No headphone jack. That's the most controversial thing, Chandra, about this particular launch. The 3.5mm universal earphone jack that comes with the iPhones might just be done away with in favor of cordless earphones, maybe an adapter to fix it inside the lightning charger port of the iPhone itself. So that's a major change that's expected as far as this particular launch goes. Apart from the iPhones, obviously, it's a launch event from Apple. It's not just about the iPhone. The Apple might just unveil the Apple Watch 2. Keep in mind, Apple Watch's sales have not come up to expectations. So some improvements on that front. A thinner, Apple Watch, same display sizes but thinner, and brand new watch operating system or Watch OS 3 could also be unveiled just to sort of prop up their major watch play, which is yet to pay off as much as they would have liked it to. Apart from that, the two major things that I'm hearing about as far as rumor mills are concerned, one is a complete reboot or an overhaul of the MacBook Pro laptop range that could be unveiled tonight by CEO Tim Cook. And apart from that, probably just maybe an iPad Mini Pro or an iPad SE, a special edition like the iPhone SE special edition that they introduced a few months ago. There's a possibility that mainly because tablet sales are seriously flagging all across the world, and the only tablet that seems to be doing well is the iPad, and even iPad is not contributing as much to revenues as much as Apple would want it to. So they might just do a number on their iPad range of suite of products and put that across as well. But all said and done, 10:30 p.m. tonight, right here on ET Now, we will be bringing you live coverage of the biggest smartphone launch of the year. You don't want to miss that one. I'll be bringing you that coverage at 10:30 p.m. as well. Chandra, hope you'll be watching.
I'll make sure I watch that, Krishna. I have a follow-up question. Is this a good time to buy iPhone 6s?
Yeah, it's like the chicken and egg question. I don't know what you have. No, I know you just bought the iPhone 6, whatever. I'll tell you what. The 6S prices are going to go down, and the 6S prices, iPhone 6's prices are going to go down even further. And the 6 and the 6S, in my personal opinion, are perfectly good phones to use. Yes, they're a tad overpriced like all Apple products are, but they are fabulous phones to use. So even if you can't afford the iPhone 7, depending upon what kind of price range is going to come to India with, iPhone 6 and 6S might just become an even more attractive buy than they are at this point in time. And for those who are still stuck with the iPhone 4S or the 5, then probably this is the time to upgrade and straight away get the latest iPhone in the market and get the iPhone 7, which is largely set to be similar to the kind of phones that we've been seeing. Mainly, why, Chandra, right? Because next year will be the 10th year anniversary of the iPhone, and Apple is set to be holding back all its major innovations for the next year's 2017 September launch, and that's the reason why I don't expect too many radical changes with the iPhone, barring that headphone jack being removed this time around tonight.
Take your word for it, Krishna. But moving on from that, and of course make sure you tune in at 10:30 p.m. But moving on from that to another interesting story that we have on the show today, and we're really talking about Ola and the Mahindra group. If you wonder what they have in common, that's the detail we are going to bring for you in this story. Now, Anand Mahindra for the longest time has spoken about the threat that the likes of Ola, Uber pose for the auto industry. But now he's planning to tie up with Ola, and what will be a strategic tie-up? We have Utkarsh Chaturvedi, who is bringing us more details on this.
Chandra, what we are expecting in an announcement by M&M and Ola tomorrow is a strategic tie-up. Now, what can we expect? Now, one is obviously from the M&M Finance side, the company can really give loans at easy rates to the Ola cars. Secondly, what we can expect is that the likes of a Verito and a Xylo. Now, these two products are not been really working in the fleet side as well for M&M. They can really push these vehicles in Ola with a low interest rate. What we can also expect is that insurance can also be something which can be provided by M&M to all the Ola cars there. And also in the end, the sales and service is something which we are expecting that M&M will take care of. This is much more of a holistic kind of a service under one umbrella. An Ola driver comes to Mahindra and it gets all the services in one ambit. So this is what we are expecting at this point of time, what we are being given told from our sources. But remember that Anand Mahindra has been really vocal about the fact that how shared mobility or the fleet operator needs to be looked at. Now, until this point of time, Chandra, M&M has not been able to really crack into that market. If you look at Hyundai, if you look at Toyota, they have their vehicles and specific vehicles have done really well in the Ola and Uber side. Even for that fact, Datsun went ahead with Go and partnered with Ola. So this time, M&M really wants to push its vehicles, whether it be a Verito or a Xylo. They have not been really doing in the fleet side with this kind of a tie-up.
All right, Totkash Chaturvedi there getting us the latest as far as India's startup ecosystem engaging with India's traditional companies and coming up with a winning win-win outcome for both of them. Thank you, Utkash, for bringing us that update. Now, moving on. His father may be at war with Mukesh Ambani, but Bharti Group scion Kavin Mittal has given Reliance Jio a thumbs up, stating that it will be fantastic for the Indian startup space. Speaking exclusively to ET Now's Rahul Dayama, Mittal says that he looks forward for data charges to come down as it will bring more people online. He also hopes that the government will work on the policy front to encourage homegrown companies. Take a look.
We're going to deploy a lot of the funds into continue to build the product, but more importantly make some longer-term bets that we can now, even though we've raised funds from some great partners. Areas like machine learning, computer vision, and so on and so forth to really enhance people's social experience. That's the idea.
Kavin, there's a lot of conversation and talk about how India might end up becoming a colony, say, of the US and Chinese companies, with it really being an Amazon, Alibaba, Uber sort of a battle. And it's really important for the government to really encourage homegrown companies to stand the test of time. What do you make of it?
I would agree. I think domestic companies and a healthy local ecosystem is very, very important for the long-term success of a country like India. I think globally, most countries have realized that the internet space is a very strategic space. And I believe in India, we are coming to the conclusion that the internet space is a very strategic space. So I look forward to what potentially could happen in the next couple of years around policy and a lot more going forward.
All right. Help us understand a few interesting trends that you see here in India. Which cities are really your highest user base? And in terms of interesting trends that you see as far as youngsters on Hike are concerned?
Yeah, we have a very young base, 15 to 24. We love it. We get to talk to them all the time. And our biggest city is Bombay. But then you have the third largest city, which is Ahmedabad. So we have a very diverse set of youngsters that we can go and talk to. And it just shows you that this country is a country of 20 plus countries. Yeah, it's exciting.
Lastly, with the big Reliance Jio launch and data really now being affordable, as far as the startup ecosystem is concerned and for applications like Hike, you see a big potential there in a larger market since many of them will now come down to smartphones and directly leapfrog to 4G?
Yeah, I think it's more about the fact that we have 190, 200 million internet users in the country, but meaningfully no more than 40, 50 million. If there becomes 100 million, it's fantastic for the internet ecosystem. So we look forward to lower data prices, we look forward to more people being on 4G. It's going to benefit the ecosystem tremendously.
Krishna, Kavin Mittal is such a sport. He never shies away from taking any questions on Jio because it's every reporter's favorite question. What do you think about Reliance? What do you think about Jio? But to his credit, he's always taken such questions head on and, he's saying, I'm excited about it. So I guess that's something interesting there. But we end the show with another important voice. We are talking about one of India's most active and important venture capital firms, Sequoia Capital, which is often very, very tough to get. But guess what? We got an important voice there, VT Bharadwaj, its managing director, who spoke to Ruchi Bhatia not just on the investment roadmap, but on the recent raids by the ED in Sequoia offices related to their investment in Vasan Eye Care, which allegedly had links with Karti Chidambaram. Let's listen into what VT Bharadwaj had to say.
The sectors that we invest in, which is technology, consumer healthcare, we remain very active, and this year continues to be no different from almost any other year for us. So we remain active, we continue to scout for entrepreneurs in this space, and we're quite excited about what we are seeing.
Which are the particular segments that you're putting in a lot of money in at this point of time, and which are the ones that you're staying away from?
Sure. Look, I think over the last 3-4 years, if you look at the sectors and spaces we've focused on, like in consumer, we remain excited about personal care, we remain excited about food, and that has been a very nice and thriving space for us, and we continue to remain very excited. In healthcare, we have invested in both healthcare services as well as pharmaceutical companies, and we are quite pleased with how that is shaped up, and we continue to remain eager, and we're trying hard and hustling hard to find new entrepreneurs in that space. And no different in technology. Like in technology, we have been investors across consumer internet, we've been investors in SaaS, we've been investors in pure tech software companies, and I think that continues to be our strategy. So really no different from what it was in the past.
So, since you're saying you're focusing a lot on internet companies, on the technology space, do you think Indian companies have what it takes to be an Uber or an Amazon?
Absolutely. I think there is nothing to doubt that India has the talent, both in terms of engineering talent. It has a very large market, which continues to remain a very exciting market globally as well as from a local perspective. And I think it also has the resources, whether it's the financial resources or the human capability in terms of building large companies. So there is nothing to suggest that, an Indian company or a company that is based out of India should perform any worse or any better, than a multinational company. There are so many sectors. For example, if you take what Vinny Cosmetics has done in fog. Fog is a deodorant, which is a category which has been dominated by a lot of the multinational players, by Unilever, and it is shown that you can basically build the #1 player in like 4-5 years if you have the right idea, the right insight and financial resources.
What is the mode that you're looking at as far as the government is concerned? What is it that the government should really do?
Look, I think the government has been very razor sharp focused on ease of doing business, and I think that is probably the #1 thing they should stay focused on, which they've done a terrific job on, and I'm sure they're doing lots of more things, and they're planning lots of things to do that. Because if the ease of doing business, which is just starting a company, or building a business, or shutting it down, or moving one business focus of the company from one business to another, if that remains easy to do, then look, entrepreneurship will flourish in India across all sectors.
Last year was particularly tough on Sequoia because of the ED's questioning on the Vasan Eye Care investment and all the other things. Where do things really stand at this point of time with respect to that? And were you really disappointed with the kind of attitude that ED showed in this particular case?
Absolutely not. Look, we are very supported and committed to doing business in India, and we are supported and committed to supporting every authority at any point of time on anything they need. And that has always been our mindset, and that continues to be how we look at life.
And with that rare interview from Sequoia, we have come to an end of this edition of ET Now Startup Central. Thank you so much for watching. Don't go anywhere. Keep it with ET Now.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.